I'm Nevaeh. I'm standing in an old, weather-beaten cemetery on the coast. The air is thick with the smell of salt and the distant sound of the sea. In front of me is a simple stone memorial with names carved in neat lines. My eyes are fixed on one name, Leo Thompson. Tears well up in my eyes as I recall the last time I was here. It was a day that shattered my world. I had come to this place, hoping to find some sort of closure, to pour out my heart to the man I loved who was lost at sea. I sat beside the memorial, the cold seeping through my coat, and I started to talk. I told him about our son, Ethan, about his dark eyes and the way he smiled. I told him how much I missed him, how I was still waiting for him, even though all signs pointed to his being gone. As I spoke, I was unaware of the man standing a few yards away, partially hidden by a stand of bare trees. It was Leo, but he didn't remember me or his life with me. After the storm that took him from me, he washed up on a remote stretch of coastline. He was found half conscious, his mind a blank slate. The people in the small, isolated rural community where he was taken gave him a new name, Ryan, because he couldn't remember his own. Leo, or Ryan as he was then, had been living a dull, repetitive life. He worked hard, hauled, repaired, and carried, in exchange for food and a place to sleep. At night, he had dreams of a woman he couldn't see clearly and a voice calling his name, but he didn't know what that name was. He was drawn to this cemetery, though he didn't understand why. That day, when he heard my voice, it was as if a bolt of lightning struck him. Memories came rushing back in a flood. He took a step forward, his legs unsteady, his heart pounding. When I heard him call my name, I froze. For a split second, I thought it was a cruel trick of my grief-addled mind. But then I turned, and there he was, pale and shaking, looking at me as if he were seeing the world for the first time. I reached out for him, my fingers gripping his jacket tightly, as if I could hold on to him and never let go. He wrapped his arms around me, and I sobbed into his chest. All the grief and pain that I had carried for so long seemed to pour out of me in that moment. Let me rewind to the beginning. I grew up in a well-to-do family in Seattle. My parents, Victoria and Henry Thompson, were successful business people. They believed in order, status, and making practical choices. I was expected to follow in their footsteps, to marry a man of their choosing, someone with a good background and a stable future. I met Leo at a local community event. He was charming, kind-hearted, and hard-working. Despite having a humble background, with no wealthy family to support him, I fell in love with him. We spent a lot of time together, sharing our dreams and hopes for the future. One evening, I gathered the courage to tell my parents about Leo and our plans to get married. We were sitting in the elegant dining room of our family mansion. The air was thick with anticipation. My hands trembled as I told them about our love. My mother's smile froze, and then it disappeared. She looked at me as if I had grown a second head. My father leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. They started to question me, asking how long this had been going on and what I thought I was doing. They pointed out that Leo had no money, no established family, and no clear future. They mentioned a man named Alexander, the son of my father's business partner. Alexander was well-educated, wealthy, and from a good family. They couldn't understand why I would choose Leo over him. I tried to explain that Leo was kind, honest, and treated me with respect. But my words fell on deaf ears. My parents only saw the risks and the potential for a difficult life. In the end, I lost my temper. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I told them that my love for Leo was real, that I was choosing him for life, not for appearances or their approval. Then I grabbed my coat and stormed out of the house. I called Leo, and he came to me right away. He took me to his grandmother's apartment. His grandmother, Amelia, was a strong-willed and no-nonsense woman. She had raised Leo after his parents died in a car accident when he was very young. Amelia studied me carefully when Leo introduced me. She listened as Leo explained what had happened. Then she said that she would not turn me away, but she made it clear that in her house, A man and a woman did not live together as husband and wife unless they were married. I agreed without hesitation. Life in the apartment was peaceful but tense. I focused on my studies and tried to find a job to support myself. Leo, on the other hand, was filled with anxiety. He loved me deeply, but he felt like he couldn't provide for me. He had no savings, no ring, and no place of his own. One day, Leo ran into a former colleague near the docks. The man told him about seasonal work on a commercial vessel operating out of Alaska. The work was hard, the hours were long, and the conditions were harsh, but the pay was good. The idea of working there for a year and coming back with enough money for a proper wedding and a new start appealed to Leo. He told me about it, and I was devastated. I tried to talk him out of it, saying that we could manage without such a drastic step. But Leo was determined. He said he would rather endure a year of separation than a lifetime of regret. Amelia, to my surprise, sided with Leo. She said that his decision was rooted in responsibility. So, Leo prepared to go to sea. The farewell was quiet and painful. We said our goodbyes, and he promised to come back and marry me properly. After he left, my life changed completely. The apartment felt empty and cold. I missed him terribly. I continued with my studies and job, hunting, but I started to feel unwell. Amelia noticed the changes in me. I was losing weight, my sleep was disrupted, and I was constantly tired. One morning, I nearly fainted in the kitchen. Amelia insisted that I see a doctor right away. The doctor's diagnosis was a shock. I was nearly 3 months pregnant. I was filled with a mix of emotions, shock, fear, and joy. I didn't know how to tell Leo. He was far away, working in difficult conditions. I decided to wait until our next scheduled Friday call. But that call never came. The hours turned into days, and my sense of unease grew. I tried to convince myself that it was just a delay, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. On the 5th morning, there was a knock on the door. A woman, the wife of one of Leo's co-workers, stood on the threshold. She told us that there had been a terrible storm and the vessel Leo was on had been damaged. His name was not on the list of survivors. I collapsed. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. I was severely stressed and dehydrated, and my pregnancy made everything more complicated. The doctors monitored me and the baby closely. I was physically weak and emotionally shattered. I gave birth to Ethan a few months later. His arrival was both a joy and a reminder of the pain of Leo's absence. After leaving the hospital, I refused to go back to my parents' home. I went back to Amelia's apartment, where Leo's presence was still felt in every corner. My mother couldn't accept my decision. She called me often, suggesting that I move on, that I was young and life should go on. One afternoon, she showed up unannounced. An argument ensued. She accused me of hiding behind grief and refusing to face reality. I finally snapped. I told her that I would not erase Leo from my life, that I would not teach Ethan that love was disposable. I told her not to come back until she could respect my choices and my grief. In the following months, I focused on raising Ethan. I lived a quiet life, going through the motions of each day. But my heart was still broken, and I never stopped hoping that Leo would come back. And then, that fateful day in the cemetery happened. Leo remembered everything, and our lives were suddenly back on track. The return to Seattle was like a dream. We traveled back together, my hand never leaving his. When we arrived at Amelia's apartment, she was waiting for us. She stared at Leo, tears in her eyes. Years of discipline and restraint melted away as she hugged him tightly. We met Ethan. Leo approached the crib slowly, as if he were afraid of breaking the moment. When Ethan's small fingers wrapped around his, Leo's shoulders shook with emotion. The practical matters followed. Leo was legally restored to his identity. Records were corrected, and his name was removed from the list of the missing. My parents came to see us. They were initially hesitant, but when they saw Leo alive and well, they had to face the truth. They apologized for their past judgments. I didn't feel any triumph or resentment. I realized that love didn't need their permission to be real. Our wedding was a simple and quiet affair. We didn't need a grand ceremony. When I stood beside Leo and spoke my vase, I felt a sense of peace and certainty. We were not starting a new life, but rather picking up where we left off, stronger and more in love than ever. In the days that followed, life wasn't easy. We still had to face the challenges of rebuilding our lives, but we did it together. We learned that love is about waiting, choosing, and remaining faithful, even when the world seems against you. And as I look back on our journey, I know that our love has withstood the test of time and adversity.